Beep, 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 beep. Right, here we go. All right, welcome to the Court of the EDI Jester. Good people, I've got a very interesting article here from the National Post, which was published in the last week or so by, written by Adam Zivo, who talks here about stop the shaming that wrongly pushes gay youth into changing their gender. It's an interesting article in many ways, and I'll be commenting along as usual, but before that, please do become a Warrior Teacher. Subscribe to my channel if you would now. Click the button now, subscribe so you can get the updates, know what's going on, because we need to keep up with this now. It's moving at a phenomenal rate. Up your game, good people, up your game. We've got to keep going. It's a terrible thing to say to people that are already at the top of it, isn't it? You know you are. Right, so Adam Zivo says, stop the shaming. Bullying, homophobia, fuel push to trans the gay away. I've spoken about this before, and Adam is taking this on. I think Adam in some cases is wrong, and I will highlight where, but I'll be interested in your opinions. Tell me in the Dubris, because the link will be in the Dubris to the National Post article. Adam begins, some lesbians, gay and bisexual youth, especially those who break gender stereotypes, hello, that's an awful lot of us, falsely identify as transgender to cope with bullying and shame. Again, we are back to this inability of men, mostly, to deal with feminine men and masculine women. We're back to the creation of a third class. It's almost tribal, the Fafafine or Farafine, and all of that stuff in a video that I did recently that debunked all that nonsense for what it is. They were wrong about doing it then, we're wrong about doing it now. So, this often puts these young people on a path towards medicalised transition, effectively transing the gay away. While improved clinical practices would reduce these outcomes, it would just as important to solve the problem at its root. Youth must be reassured that there is no shame in same-sex attraction or gender nonconformity. Now, what is fascinating to me as an individual who is interested in cultural metic drift, and by that I mean the movement of language and the movement of memes, the movement of ideas through culture, is that what we are now seeing would have been unthinkable 2 years ago, when we're in the midst of it, where you have to be careful on Twitter if you call a bloke he, right? We're moving. And what I see this article as is part of that movement, in that we're seeing a drifting of ideas in which they're now saying that there is such a thing as trans in the gay away and we've got to avoid it. Whereas I'm sitting over here going, yeah, but the transgender thing is a falsity from its roots to the tip of its branches. And the only way that we stop this is for people to declare at the highest possible level, gender identity doesn't exist, transgenderism is a nonsense, and we're not going to support it in any way. That's how, right? So what Adam is doing in this very good article is he's actually sort of capitulating to a certain degree to the idea that the concept of a gender identity exists. And that's interesting because it still shows that we've moved, because he's then able to say, well, actually, I think this is what's happening as well, whereas we couldn't before. So I think society just needs a little bit more time before you'll all be sitting where I am. It all ends, and it ends tomorrow. So we'll see. Or am I just an extremist nut job in receipt of far-right money from various, Nazis and other people? Right. So what he's saying is it puts them on a medical transition. It is just as important to solve the problem at its root. He's saying what is going on before that. It is only in recent years that we have become aware of the unintentional homophobia that sometimes suffuses gender identity services. I think you'll find in some cases it's not unintentional. We all know what I'm thinking about. The question before us is where's the clitoris? We all know what I'm thinking about. Right? Mermaids. Our knowledge largely stems from public investigation into the United Kingdom's sole publicly funded paediatric gender clinic, colloquially referred to as the Tavistock, which is currently being shuttered for providing irresponsible care. Well, it wasn't care of any format in my eyes, even though the people that did it may have had the best of intentions. Best of intention. There was something with Konstantin Kisin on the other day, and he was talking about what happened after the fall of the Soviet Union and the gulags and all the stuff that went with it, is that they moved out of the gulags and they ended up living with the guards. And that these guards, when they finally realised the true horror of what they'd done, even though they'd had the best of intentions, began killing themselves en masse because they couldn't live with what they'd done. The whole thing's a horror story, and it's just a horror story of the worst kind. The worst kind. Earlier this year, BBC investigative journalist Hannah Barnes released a highly acclaimed book Time to Think, which used interviews with almost 60 clinicians to reconstruct Tavistock's implosion. Among other things, she provided in-depth accounts of how LGBT youth had been harmed by the gender-affirmative model of care. This model, which is the norm in Canada and many other countries, obliges healthcare providers to reflexively support transgender self-identification without considering other aspects of patients' lives, including sexual orientation and mental health. When ideology interferes with STEM, this is what happens. However, this is where I fall out with you. While gender nonconformity can indicate that someone is transgender, there's no such thing. No such thing as a made-up identity. It's just so that they can claim victimhood. There's no such thing. No such thing. There are just people in distress or LARPers. That's it. There's only two categories. I've finally come to the conclusion. Two. Gender people in distress, unwell, need help. Need help, yeah? Or LARPers. That's it. It can just as easily, he says, indicate that they are LGBT. It indicates they're all LGBT to me. 90%, not 90%, 100%, original Dutch model, all boys, all gay. All had sexuality that pointed towards the idea that they were gay. All of them, every single one. And then when we did it, we looked at it in the Tavistock, it was well over 85%. Well, I was saying it was actually 100%. 15% wouldn't admit it. Maybe, hey? How many people do we know hide in the closet? Who do you know that hides in the closet? Right? So, naughty. Now, it can just as easily indicate that they are LGBT. Barnes' interviews frequently alleged that a considerable number of LGBT youth with complex mental health issues were hastily referred to the Tavistock because of perfectly normal gender non-conforming behaviour and were then swiftly pushed into medical transition while their actual issues were ignored. It's a sin. It's a bloody crime, I think. Severe internalised homophobia was common among patients. Boys wanted to have sex the normal way, and teenage girls would say that the thought of being a lesbian was repulsive. That's what Stonewall have done. That's what the LGBT Foundation have done. That is what the LGBT Consortium have done. That is what GLAAD have done, both of them. GLADD and GLAAD, both of them. That is what WPATH has done. That is what an industry that is predicated on the conversion therapy, which they will provide to young LGBT people. That's what conversion therapy looks like when it sneaks in the back door. And the worst thing about it is, of course, every gay that's now keeping their mouth shut is also complicit. I'm having a job telling the difference between them and the ones that actively support it. You're complicit, guys. You know you are. By saying nothing, you're complicit. They wanted to have sex the normal way. I mean, I just can't. And teenage girls would say that the thought of being lesbian was repulsive. Homophobic comments were so ubiquitous that one gay clinician, Dr. Matt Bristow, came to believe that young patients saw being transgender as a less oppressive option than acknowledging they are gay. It's conversion therapy. Some parents also made homophobic comments and seemed to prefer having a straight transgender child over a homosexual one. Go and read it. Go and read it. How did we get here? I have to ask myself, how did we get here? Go and read it. You know, on a personal level, it's really hard because there's people I love, many of them, in what used to be called the community, before the realisation of what was going on dawned on me, and many of them have gone silent. They don't speak to me anymore. I never hear from them, you know? Or others just quietly put up with me, bless them. You know you are. And others actively support, but there's not one of them yet, not one of them. With the exception of maybe, no, actually there is one, but even that's small. There's not one of them who is actively engaging on social media and going, the rest of you are wrong. Not one. Not one who will like a post. Not one. And that's sad, I think. And I know that there's many people out there speaking to the warrior teachers, same situation. Friends they've known for years. Gone. And that's sad, folks, isn't it? But look at all the other people we've met. Look at it, see? We're on the right side of history. Get up every morning, say to yourself, am I the bad guy? Am I the bad guy? Am I the one that's wrong? Get up every morning and say that to yourself. Hold yourself to account constantly so that you don't end up in the same ideological hellhole as the people that have damaged so many gay and lesbian children. Make sure you don't get in the same ideological hellhole, that we don't build our own ideology, that we maintain our individuality, that we collaborate, and we end this most appalling of situations. And that we hope and pray at some point in the future, those people that have left you, and those people that don't speak to you, and those people that aren't engaging, will A, one day apologise for what they've done to you, and B, forgive themselves for their inaction. That's all I hope. All right, so you go and have a great day. I'll see you later. Bye.